UFC Fight Night Vegas 47, Hermansson versus Strickland takes place this weekend, and I'm going to go through the entire card, starting with the early prelims, ending with the main event, giving my prediction and breakdown for every single fight on the card, starting with the early prelim opener of Malcolm Gordon versus Dennis Bondar. I am going to side with Dennis Bondar here immediately. I've watched Malcolm Gordon fight, and if you have watched Malcolm Gordon fight, you'll realise why I'm picking Dennis Bondar. Dennis Bondar isn't the best himself. He hasn't beat the best of opponents on the regional scene. It's not like he had a good fight with Zalgas Samagulov on the regional flyweight scene or anything like that. He hasn't fought the best of opponents, but he looks good against those opponents and makes them look quite bad. He's got great grappling, decent stand-up. I don't see Malcolm Gordon giving him any problems on the feet because Malcolm Gordon is extremely chinny. I can even see a KO if anyone gets a KO here early on to Dennis Bondar just because of how bad the chin of Malcolm Gordon is. And also, Francisco Figueiredo is really, really garbage and trash, and the only reason Malcolm Gordon won that fight against Francisco Figueiredo is because Francisco Figueiredo might have a few more chromosomes than Davison Figueiredo. Okay, because he was diving on the ground for no reason, just like Cyril Gane. Diving on the ground for no reason, going for leg locks for no reason, even though he's on top and he's winning. And that's the only reason that Malcolm Gordon even won that fight against Francisco Figueiredo. I'm going to go with Dennis Bondar. I think he's got a grappling advantage. He doesn't look too stupid. Like, I'm not noticing like an extra finger on one of his hands or like a wonky eye or anything like that. So I'm going to go with Dennis Bondar here, getting the job done. I'm picking him to win. I think he'll secure the grappling positions. And Amir Albazi had a real easy time on the ground with Malcolm Gordon. As soon as he hit the ground, he immediately set up a triangle easily. So I don't think Malcolm Gordon's too good at not getting himself finished. So I will see a submission win for Dennis Bondar in the second round by rear naked choke. I think they both land decent shots on the feet. Bondar gets a takedown. Gordon gets beat up on the ground for a bit, survives the first round, gets beat up on the ground in the second round, gives up his back, and then eventually Dennis Bondar pounds him. Gordon gives up the neck, and Bondar takes the rear naked choke. I'm going Dennis Bondar, rear naked choke. I think he's got advantages everywhere. He's been waiting for his debut, I believe, for a very long time. So he isn't the most active of guys, but he's got a lot of experience. 29 years of age. If it's now, it's now. It's now or never. So I'm going to go with Dennis Bondar. I think he gets this one done by submission. Moving on up the card, Jailton Almeida versus Danilo Marquez. I'm going to go with Jailton Almeida here. He's a monster. I'm going to go with Jailton Almeida. He's another one of these Brazilian guys, just really, really shredded and ripped. Veiny and everything. I mean, it's ridiculous. He's clean, I reckon. But yes, I'm going to pick him over Danilo Marquez. He looked amazing on the Contender Series, and he fought a very good opponent on the Contender Series as well, so you can't ignore it. I believe his name was one of the Dagestani ones, Nasruddinov, of course. Very good opponent, very good grappling especially as well, which is important for this matchup against Danilo Marquez. Danilo Marquez, he seems to be able to get good positional control, but his cardio's not the best. Of course, he is 36 years of age, so he's not going to be in his athletic prime right now where he can go as hard as he possibly could when he maybe was 30 years of age and stuff like that. He's had a couple of injuries in his career. I mean, Kennedy Njokuani was able to defend the submission attempts of Danilo Marquez. Other people have been able to defend those positions as well for a while. He is very good at grappling, but I'm going to trust in Jailton Almeida. I mean, the last fight he had was the best evidence you could require for picking someone against Danilo Marquez. Beat an amazing grappler in Nasruddinov, out-grappled him in moments, and got the rear naked choke in the second round, which is something that Danilo Marquez can't do against Njokuani, who isn't like this esteemed grappler, an amazing grappler that maybe a Nasruddinov or even a Jailton Almeida is. So I'm going to go with Jailton Almeida. Maybe being out-grappled against a cage in the first round, but landing some good knees to the body, defending position, using like a wizard to throw Danilo Marquez to the ground a couple of times, and maybe take like the headlock position, north-south. Danilo has to push against a cage, and I think it's all going to be too much work for not enough too much juice, or too much squeeze for not enough juice for old Danilo Marquez. And I can see him gassing out a little bit sooner than the third, because even at the end of the second round against Njokuani, he had a little bit of trouble there as well. So I'm going to go with Jailton Almeida, end of the second round. I'll go with a choke. I'll say rear naked choke again. Jailton Almeida's got a lot of rear naked chokes in his career. His last 3 wins in MMA have been by rear naked choke. No, last 2 wins in MMA by rear naked choke. He had a grappling tournament as well earlier this year, which I think is great practice. Went all the way to the finals and won the entire tournament in submission circus. Didn't hear of that promotion, but he fought Kai Bahalo in that promotion and beat him in a decision by grappling him. Luis Felipe Diaz. I mean, he's very good at grappling. I think he's going to win this one, and I trust him to. He's in his prime, 30 years of age at light heavyweight. He's got a good reach. I think he's going to piece up Danilo Marquez in the second round, make him shoot a bad takedown, take the back position, rear naked choke him. Moving on up the card, Alexis Davis versus Julijya Stoliarenko. I'm going to go with Alexis Davis here. Very underrated women's fighter. I think a lot of people overlook her because she has got a terrible record. I mean, 20-11, but, you know, Nate Diaz, eh? Keep that same energy. Better than Nate Diaz's record. Let's be real, Nate Diaz's record is catching up to the current year. I'm going to go with her. Alexis Davis. I think she's pretty good. She had a very close fight with a lot of good fighters, which is something I'm definitely going to have to take into consideration here. She beat a lot of decent fighters, maybe, arguably by some weird decisions, but they never went her way. The Viviane Araújo fight, she just gets hit by the better shots, and she's got a lot of scar tissue because she's been around for a while, so she gets hit by these shots and they make her bleed, and you're like, okay, but she's also landing more in this situation, but she's just getting hit by the better punches too often. But Alexis Davis, very good, had a very close fight with Pani Kianzad, landed more, got the takedown, but Pani Kianzad landed the better shots on the feet, and Pani Kianzad is a good women's fighter, capable women's fighter, who actually looks like she knows what she's doing, which makes her a 1%. Same with Viviane Araújo, looks like she knows what she's doing with her hands. She's in that upper echelon of women's MMA fighters, and arguably Alexis Davis outlanded her on the ground, on the feet, but again, Viviane Araújo got the takedown she needed, landed the bigger shots, made it look like she was winning that fight, so she just can't quite secure these wins. Jennifer Maia, top-ranked flyweight, Davis outlanded her, got the takedown, had the positional control, but Maia landed the bigger shots, cut her open. Like, it's just, there's these weird decisions that she keeps on having in her career, again, against Caitlin Chookagian. More strikes, more volume, got the takedown, Chookagian landed the bigger shots. It's just one of those things that makes it difficult to score in women's MMA because barely any of the shots do any damage whatsoever. So for the few shots that do some damage, they think, oh my god, it's like Ngannou's out there. You know what I mean? Like, just if they pop the head back a bit with a jab. So I'm going to go with Alexis Davis here. Julijya Stoliarenko is hot trash. She is quite hot, though, in certain ways, but I'm going to be picking against her. She doesn't have to drain herself down a weight class. Or she does, sorry. Still at bantamweight, my bad. But I just think she always has trouble with the weight cut. She's had a full camp for this one, so I understand it. But I'm going to trust in Alexis Davis here. She got dominated by Yana Kunitskaya. Beaten very significantly by Julia Avila as well. I think Alexis Davis can beat her, just barely. And I might even say 30-26 decision for Alexis Davis. I think she's going to win the first 2 rounds, outland Julijya Stoliarenko in those first 2 rounds, dominate her, get the takedown, land some big shots, win those 2 10-9, and then the third round where Alexis Davis usually does quite well against all of the opponents I mentioned that she lost to. I think she's going to start dominating that round, get the 10-8 round. Julijya Stoliarenko's tough, but I'm going to go 30-26. Alexis Davis. Moving on up the card, Jason Witt versus Phillip Rowe. I'm going to trust in Phillip Rowe here over Jason Witt. Jason Witt's pretty good. I've underrated him a couple of times in his career. Like, I even believe I picked against him in his last fight against Bryan Barberina. He ended up winning that one by majority decision. I don't know how any judge didn't see a clear win for Jason Witt there. He dropped Barberina multiple times in that fight, stole the rounds of those moments and had the bigger moments in general. Got laid out cold by Matt Semmelsberger, got laid out cold by Takashi Sato. He beat Cole Williams, not the best of opponents, let's be real. Looked a little bit fat, out of shape when he came in there, hadn't been in the cage for a long time. I'm going to trust Phillip Rowe, 31 years of age. Maybe Jason Witt could give him a problem in the grappling, but he just fought Gordon Ryan at Who's Number 1, the return of Gordon Ryan. I guess he was just like a gimme fight for him. He fought Who's Number 1, Craig versus, he fought Cody Steele. He fought Submission Underground 22, Fury Pro Grappling. That was the card that everyone was on recently. I believe Nami Yunus was supposed to be on there versus someone. There was a bunch of fighters on that card. Strickland, I believe, was on the card as well. Holland might have been on that card, maybe. There was a bunch of those cards recently, and he's been on them, and I've noticed him on there. He's losing, but he's in grappling tournaments, and that shows that he's willing to learn and improve, and he beat Ryan Kosuke earlier last year, so I'm going to go with him. He's got momentum right now. He lost to Gabriel Green, which is not a good look, but Gabriel Green is somewhat tough, and he can wear on guys. It was a pretty good fight as well, pretty competitive. I just trust Phillip Rowe to win this one. I think he's more explosive on the feet. I believe he has something like a 10-inch reach advantage. 10.5-inch reach advantage here on the feet. And I don't see Jason Witt dominating him in the grappling. So I'm going to go with Phillip Rowe, learning from his mistakes. He's developed his grappling game. He's competed with fucking Gordon Ryan in preparation. Like, I think he's developing his grappling game in the background. I'm going to trust that he can keep it standing. And if he does, I think he's going to win with that 10.5-inch reach advantage, which is fucking ridiculous. And I think he's going to win very impressively. First round TKO, I'll say, for Phillip Rowe at the end, with knees maybe. Moving on up the card, Chidi Njokuani versus Marc-Andre Barriault. I'm going to go with Chidi Njokuani, man. I was thinking Marc-Andre Barriault for a while, but I'm switching to Chidi Njokuani because I've watched a couple of his fights and watched a couple of the people that he's lost to, and man, he's fought some good opponents in his career, you know, used to fight at welterweight, so that's like immediately props, because middleweights are garbage. Like, let's be real, they're the worst division skill-wise, pound for pound, I would say. And Chidi Njokuani came up at welterweight against great opponents, like he even beat Andre Fialho, who we just watched go 3 rounds with Mikel Pereira, and arguably win the first round against Mikel Pereira as well on short notice. He beat Max Griffin, who's also a welterweight on the UFC roster, about to fight Neil Magny, beat him on the regional scene at welterweight as well. Like, he's fought good opponents at a better division by far. I think those technical skills are going to carry themselves over up to middleweight. And some of the people that he's lost to, Jeremy Kimball, you know, not the best loss to have, but Jeremy Kimball, I believe, ended up fighting at light heavyweight at one point in his career, so he's a big dude, you know. He lost to Brandon Thatch early in his career, but again, Brandon Thatch, 2011, he got KO'd, you know, Brandon Thatch, 2011, it's like, these things are going to happen when you're fighting this level of opponent. Andre Korshkev, fair play, you got KO'd. It's Andre Korshkev. You know what I mean? You're not like a very experienced guy, and it's Andre Korshkev. So I like it here. John Salter, very good fighter, good grappling, exposed to grappling a bit of Chidi Njokuani in certain moments. Managed to get the body lock, go for some trips and stuff like that. Ended up getting him to the ground and keeping him there and beating him pretty impressively by rear naked choke. But he's been improving. He fought Rafael Cavallo, who's very, very good as well. Like, these aren't gimme fights. You know what I'm saying? These are not gimme fights. Rafael Cavallo is a very, very good fighter. It's just, you know, you get dealt these cards on the way to the UFC where you eventually want to go. Lose at Bellator, but he beat Christian Torres. Not a great win, but still, his win on the Contender Series against Mario Souza was very impressive. Got the third round ground and pound TKO. I think he can just do a bit better than Dawodu. I think he's got the athleticism that Dawodu has, and maybe the power as well, and some of the speed. But I just think he's better technically in between all of that. And Dawodu still had a decently competitive fight with Marc-Andre Barriault. But Marc-Andre Barriault's cardio was too much. He started pushing the pace in the later rounds. So I'm going to say that Chidi Njokuani wins the first 2 rounds. I think he wins the first round. Maybe he drops Marc-Andre at one moment, but Marc-Andre battles through it. But he wins the first round 10-9. I think he's going to win the second round closely, 10-9 as well. And I'm going to call a third round rally for Marc-Andre Barriault that's a little bit too late. 10-9 to Marc-Andre Barriault in the third. I'm going to go Chidi Njokuani here. I think he's very technical. He's got improved takedown defense, improved grappling. He's got a massive reach advantage on the feet. I think he's got a bit of a speed advantage over Marc-Andre. And I just think he's developed his game, and he came up against great opponents. I'm going to trust Chidi Njokuani to get this one done at evens against Marc-Andre Barriault. And, yeah, I'm going to go with him. Decision, 29-28, based on the first 2 rounds, before Marc-Andre's fucking gas tank kicks in the third round. Moving on up the card, Hakeem Dawodu versus Mike Trizano. I'm going to go with Hakeem Dawodu here. I know people, Hakeem Dawodu, I mock him quite a bit because his voice sounds the way that it does, okay? I'm going to give you another knockout. It's just not the most intimidating voice to hear from a fighter, but, you know, we accept it. We accept people that sound so hideous and freakish, but I'm going to go Hakeem Dawodu. He's got a reach advantage, and one thing I'm noticing here, Hakeem Dawodu's got really good straight shots. Pimp, he'll pop a 1-2 down the pipe and land them well. He beat Zubaira Tukhugov, which is a good win to have in his career, you know what I mean? He's beat some other good guys in his career. Lost to Evloev, but, you know, gave a decent scrap and a decent account of himself, just got positionally controlled in certain moments. I don't see Trizano out-grappling him. The Grant Dawson loss for Trizano hasn't aged the best, and his Ludovic Klein win hasn't aged the best either. So he's kind of being double-teamed by his last 2 performances, in all ways. Like, I'm going to go with Hakeem Dawodu here. I think he gets this one done. He's beat a couple of good opponents. Julijya Arce is no slouch. Hakeem Dawodu beat him. Sure, he got beat earlier on in his career by Danny Henry, which is a bit of a shock. Like, of course, he's going to have a bit of a chinny issue, but I'm going to go with Hakeem Dawodu here. I just don't like the head movement of Mike Trizano. He's a bit of a zombie. He doesn't have the reach advantage here. Dawodu's going to use that reach. I think I just see Trizano walking into punishment for 3 rounds. 30-27 Dawodu. He peppers up the face of Trizano for 3 rounds. Stuffs takedowns against the cage. Works his way back into the center. Lands some good knees on the break. I can just see Trizano trying to dip a bit, but just getting fucking stung up to the head because he just doesn't have the best head movement. So I'm going to go Dawodu with straight shots down the pipe for 3 straight rounds, 30-27. Moving on up the card, Miles Johns versus John Castaneda, Battle of the Johns. I'm going to go with Miles Johns here, 29-28. I'm going to go Miles Johns wins the first 2 rounds here, and John Castaneda maybe makes a comeback in the third and has some decent moments, gets on top with a takedown. But John Castaneda, it's just, I was watching some of his former fights. He looked really good against Eddie Wineland, got a KO in the first round, but after O'Malley decapitated Wineland, I don't know how much credit to even give John Castaneda for that win. I don't know how much credit to give Sean O'Malley for that win. So, it was a good KO, really good KO, and he made Wineland look like trash, but Wineland's coming to the end of his career, especially like durability-wise, at least we can say. So I'm going to go with Miles Johns over John Castaneda. I think he's very good. He's had an amazing amount of momentum recently with some really good wins. I bet he's feeling himself right now, you know what I'm saying? Miles Johns, his confidence is going to be through the roof coming into this fight because he's had some really good performances. Sure, he got flying kneed by Mario Batista. That shit happens. Only loss of his career. He beat Adrian Yanez on the regional scene as well, by the way. And beat some good opponents on the regional scene, like Cole Smith, Richie Santiago, Eric Ellington, who was 5-0 at the time as well. Like, he's beat some decent opponents on the regional scene. He's not the biggest of names. Trains at a good gym at Fortis MMA. I trust him to win this one. Great KO over Anderson Dos Santos. Ripped him up for 3 rounds. Eventually finished him in the third. Beat Kevin Natividad with a brutal uppercut as well. Plus, he does some dirty shit, so I'm going to trust him to use some of that dirty shit to his advantage. I just think he's got a power difference here. I don't think either guy's going to out-grapple each other, but Miles Johns has a big power difference on the feet, so I can see Castaneda coming in, landing 1-2, and then Johns cracking him with a big shot and making him sort of step back a bit, and that's what's going to win the first 2 rounds for Miles Johns. Bit of a power difference. Castaneda might win the third, 29-28 Miles Johns. I watched back Nathaniel Wood versus John Castaneda. Maybe Nathaniel Wood's going to be great, and we don't know it, because he did beat Casey Kenny on 2 weeks' notice, but got robbed, in my opinion. But he beat the fucking living shit out of John Castaneda in that fight. Like, I've never seen Johns sunned by someone. I've seen him cracked and then flying kneed and put out, I get it. Castaneda got, like, shown levels again. If you haven't watched Nathaniel Wood versus John Castaneda, I know John Castaneda took it on short notice, but I believe he had a fight he was getting ready for. He got schooled really badly, and it's hard for me to get over that mental image and see him winning against a good level bantamweight like Miles Johns, who I believe could be at that Nathaniel Wood level, maybe a little bit lower, who knows. I'm going with Miles Johns though. I can't unsee what Wood did to Castaneda. Moving on up the card, Julian Erosa versus Steven Peterson. I'm going to go with Julian Erosa. I think is a lot. I don't think anyone's picking Steven Peterson here. It's a good, maybe spinning back fists it, you know what I mean? Like, it could have happened. Steven Peterson's got that way about him. He's a bit scrappy. He's tough. He can make fights go a certain way, but Julian Erosa's all those things, but better, in my opinion. He's beat great opponents. His wins have aged pretty well as well. Julian Erosa, man, I know sometimes he gets laid out cold and maybe he's a bit chinny and gets a bit scrappy sometimes, but he beat Nate Landwehr, which is a very good win. Nate Landwehr recently beat Ludovic Klein. Not the best guy in hindsight, we find out, but Nate Landwehr's tough, durable, and Erosa got the job done against him. Fair play, a shot behind the head, but still. That's going to happen again. If it's going to happen again, it's not illegal if it's thrown from the front of someone. So I'm going to go with Julian Erosa here. Had some good momentum recently. Beat Sean Woodson, you know. Beat AJ Bryant, who was good at cage sport. He constantly jumps in there against tough opponents, and it's rewarded him in his career. He fought Julijya Arce, Grant Dawson, Devontae Smith in his career. Got KO'd by some of them, I get it, but I'm going to trust him here to beat Steven Peterson. I don't think Peterson's that explosive. Annihilate Chase the Soy Boy Hooper, please. Annihilate him. Don't go to a decision. Annihilate him. Okay? I think that's what should have happened. Chase Hooper's a soy boy. We found that out eventually. I don't think Julian Erosa's that same level as Chase Hooper. I think he's really about that shit. You know what I'm saying? White tees and everything. I think he gets this one done. Big shots. body shots, knees to the body, front kicks on Steven Peterson. Eventually, Steven Peterson shoots a bad takedown, gets dash choked by Julian Erosa in the second or third round, maybe the third round to Julian Erosa. I'll say third round submission for Julian Erosa over Steven Peterson. And of course, Erosa's got that great win as well over Charles Jourdain by third round dash choke. So I think he keeps that the same way. Dash choke, third round, signature move. He'll get it done again. Moving on up the card, Tresean Gore versus Bryan Battle. I'm going Tresean Gore. I'm going Tresean Gore over Bryan Battle. Bryan Battle, I wanted to pick him for a while. I don't like his nickname. It should be Bryan the Boss Battle. Bryan the Boss Battle. Bryan the Boss Battle. Perfect. But instead he calls himself Pooh Bear, which makes me want him dead and his head on a spike immediately, because you've been gifted. You have been gifted by life with one of the most amazing names I've ever seen. This is like Deontay Wilder, Tyson Fury level nameage. Battle is in your name. And you choose to absolutely tarnish that great name with Pooh Bear in the middle. I want him to lose. I was going to pick him maybe. It's not just because of his name that I've switched. He gets hit a lot in fights in order to come back and win. Tresean Gore had a bit of an easier time with Gilbert Urbina. I mean, it was a decent scrap, but Tresean Gore gets it done. I reckon he's got the power difference. I know he's recovering from an injury, and Bryan Battle's been a little bit more active, and Tresean Gore's only 3-0, so I get it. I respect Bryan Battle for even taking this fight, and I do hope that if he loses, like I believe he will, he gives the tough trophy to Tresean Gore. That would be a great moment to post on ESPN after the fight happens, in my opinion, and both would gain stock from it as well, so that's what he should do. If you lose, Bryan Battle, give that tough trophy away, please. I think that should be in the contract. I just think Tresean Gore's got the finishing ability here, and Battle gets beaten up before he wins. I don't think you can afford to be beaten up by Tresean Gore. I was thinking, you know, maybe he can take the damage and then come back later on and rewatch some of Tresean Gore's performances. He's very technical. He's got big power in both of his hands. I think he's going to crack Bryan Battle in the first round and get a KO towards, like, 3 minutes into the first round. Tresean Gore gets it done. Moving on up the card, Sam Alvey versus Phil Hawes. Oh, you ginger bastard, you. Sam Alvey. Tempting me. I can feel it in my beard. I'm going to go with Phil Hawes. Greatest porn star name ever. I'm going to pick him to win. Fuck! But Sam Alvey, like, arguably beat Dawodu Young, so I don't understand. But middleweights have had a decent time with him. Julian Marquez beat him, of course. Wellington Turman even beat him as... Yeah, middleweight Sam Alvey don't do too well. I'm going to go Phil Hawes, but he's got such a genetically bad chin, it's worrying. Like, little shots wobble him really badly, like Devontae Smith level, like, you know, Malcolm Gordon level. It's a worrying chin for me to trust in right now, so I'm not going to trust in the chin. I am! Sam Alvey's not got the best of chins either, and Phil Hawes is better than him. He'll land better shots. I'll say Phil Hawes gets a first round KO and bounces back with vengeance, but tough to trust that chin. Real tough to trust that chin, so it's worrying, but I'm going to go... What kind of underdog is Sam Alvey? Oh dear. What kind of underdog is he? Oh, over 2-1. What? Oh. Phil Hawes, though. I'm going Phil Hawes. I got an underdog next, though. Moving on. Shavkat Rakhmonov versus Carlston Harris. I'm going to go with Carlston Harris over Shavkat Rakhmonov. And I think it's an absolute disaster that this fight is so far apart in odds. I think this is an evens matchup. Toughest test of Shavkat Rakhmonov's career. By far the toughest test. A really good test for him. And I think he's going to fail at this hurdle. Shavkat Rakhmonov is very good against Mikel Prazeres and Alex Oliveira. Mikel Prazeres is a dwarf of a man in that division. Like, he has no reach, no chance of reaching opponents, and he got beaten he got beaten quite convincingly by Rear Naked Choke in the second round by Shavkat Rakhmonov. He's not good. And he'd been out for over 2 years, 2.5 years before that fight. And I know the Weasel, You know, Shavkat's from that area of the world, so Weasel drops to his knees and opens his mouth, preparing for an absolute, you know, guzzle session on that Dagestani chode. But Shavkat Rakhmonov is good. He's very good. He's been taken down before in his career, and he's been saved by the bell before in his career. Just going to point out, at one point in his career, and I don't remember who it was against, maybe Faridun Odilov, it's somewhere where it went out of the first round, so you can do your research. I was watching it the other day, but I can't remember what it was. But he got saved by the bell really badly at the end of the first round, where a guy's on top of him, pounding the fuck out of him. Like, it's about to get finished kind of level shit. He gets back up, gets to his stall, the guy's gassed out from trying to finish him, and he gets the job done in the later rounds. He's very good. I don't think he's fought anyone like Carlston Harris before. On record, he has. Mikel Prazeres is 26-3, but way past his prime. Too small for welterweight by far. Hadn't fought in 2.5 years. I'm going to go Carlston Harris, man. This ain't the first Dagestani phenom that he's taken out. He took one out on UAE Warriors. He beat Sajid Izakamev 17-1 on an absolute surge, and he beat him down, got the dash choke in the second round, and he's extremely, extremely good. And that same guy who got beaten by Carlston Harris is now on a 3-fight win streak against Paulo Cesar 11-4, Maxim Batorin 20-3, and then James Nakashima 12-2. Like, he's still beating great opponents even at 1FC now. Carlston Harris is really about that life, man. He really is about that life, and I think he's going to go out there and get the upset on Shavkat Rakhmonov. I think he's more explosive. He's got danger in his hands. Shavkat has as well, but I think it's going to get scrappy, and I think when it gets scrappy, Harris will crack him and then take him down. Shavkat will work back up, but I think Harris is just going to out-hustle him here. And I'm going to go over Carlston Harris TKO in the second round. I think there's going to be a close first. Both guys landing their shots. Both guys get a couple of takedowns. Round 2, they're both swinging. Harris gets there first. Cracks him on the chin, puts him down. Follow-up shots on the ground. Boom, boom, boom. Down goes Shavkat Rakhmonov. I actually think this is where the hype ends of Shavkat. I'm going to go Carlston Harris. He's extremely good. Even in his last performance against Impa Kasanganay, I mean, he destroyed him in the first round. Impa Kasanganay is good. I know maybe you could argue, he's a bit chinny in hindsight and stuff like that, but still, it's Carlston Harris who reveals these things about these fighters, and because he's fought for so long on the regional scene, he's fought great opponents, so I'm going to trust in my boy Carlston Harris. I've trusted him so far in his career, and I think he gets it done this weekend. I don't even think I picked him against Impa, by the way, but he's proven me wrong many times, and I'm going with Carlston Harris. I'm picking him to win this one by KO in the second round. Moving on up the card, Pinelli Soriano versus Nick Maximov. I'm going to go with Pinelli Soriano here. I trust in him to win this one. I really do trust in him to win this one. Nick Maximov is good, but he's got that kind of... there's like this Stockton style where you have to like have no athletic ability, no explosiveness possible. Just be kind of durable and just take damage until your opponent gets bored of beating you up, essentially, in certain moments. Like, he did out-grapple Cody Brundage, who is a good guy to out-grapple, but Cody Brundage ain't really the same level of strength or explosiveness that Pinelli Soriano is, who's got great grappling himself. I think Pinelli's going to stuff a couple of those takedowns, knee Maximov to the body a couple of times, and then lay him out cold in the first round with a big overhand on like a lazy jab of Nick Maximov. I think it'll be that easy. Pinelli comes in, feints, stuffs a couple of takedowns, weak sauce takedowns from the unathletic Maximov. They get separated. Maximov goes to step in with a jab to like duck under. Boom, over the top of the jab, right on the top of the head, around the temple area. Right hand from Pinelli, puts down Nick Maximov. Shovel shots, big shots. He finishes him off. Nick Maximov covering up against the cage. He's going to complain about the stoppage because he's a part of the Diaz team. So you have to complain about everything that happens, even if you do get your ass kicked. So I think he's going to complain about the stoppage, be covering his head. What? Try and grab a single on the ref. Like, I'm fighting back. Like, you got beaten. I think Pinelli Soriano, first round TKO, drops Maximov bad, shovel uppercuts, moves him backwards against the cage, lands shots as Maximov's covering up. Pinelli gets this one done. I just don't see... Nick Maximov, watch his fight against Cody Brundage. If he can't immediately dominate and out-grapple Pinelli Soriano, which he couldn't really do to Cody Brundage. He had positional control, but he didn't really do any damage from those positions whatsoever. If he can't get complete positional dominance and just dominate Pinelli Soriano immediately into this fight, when they're both fresh and explosive, where Pinelli's more explosive than him, I think he's going to get immediately laid out cold. I was hyped up for Maximov. He beat a heavyweight on the Contender Series as a middleweight, so he's good. But that heavyweight probably had no technique, no background, just a tough guy from the streets with a decent record, good KO power. You know what I mean? Some heavyweights are like that. I'm gonna go with Pinelli Soriano. The Brundage fight, Maximov was throwing shots. I'm like, Jesus, stop throwing punches. Just shoot. You know what I mean? Just stop throwing anything. No power, no sting, no speed. Just floppy shots. I think he gets cracked and put away by Pinelli Soriano. Whoever's managing Nick Maximov, stupid matchup in my opinion. Absolute mismatch. But he could win, and if he does, I'm on board the hype train. Prove me wrong, Nick. Moving on up the card, Jack Hermansson versus Sean Strickland. I'm going to go with Sean Strickland here over Jack Hermansson. I think Strickland, I watch his style, and he's just not good, is he? But Hermansson isn't really either on the feet. I'm not saying either guy's like a wizard. They're middleweights. But Strickland doesn't do anything where I'm like, oh, wow. You know, like dip, right hand. There's nothing wow. There's oh, that's okay. Oh, it seems to be working for him. You know what I mean? That's the kind of reaction when you watch Sean Strickland fight. It's nothing like, oh my goodness, that was amazing. It's just oh, this is really working out for him, huh? That's the reaction I have when I watch Strickland fight, because I think maybe, I looked back at his old fights, he had the same style though, so I don't think it's the motorbike accident, but it looks like he's got a splint in his spine. He's just so upright, like a meerkat out there. I think he's going to get this one done by decision. Maybe a late rounds TKO. I'm going to bet on a decision fight of the night between both of them. I just think Hermansson's had a trouble getting people to the ground and keeping him there in his career. Even against Edmund Shabazian, you know, he's getting pieced up in that first round, and if he was going to immediately get down Shabazian, I think he should have done, and I don't think he's going to immediately get down Sean Strickland. I think he's going to try to, because he's been grappling Khamzat Chimaev in a wrestling match, so he's trying to work on his wrestling. He has a wrestling background, though. Jiu-Jitsu came second. I made that mistake earlier in his career, thinking this Jiu-Jitsu wizard here, but he's a wrestler first. You know what I mean? And then he was a Jiu-Jitsu guy, and developed that. That's why he's such a low belt in Jiu-Jitsu, even though he's got great Jiu-Jitsu. But Strickland's Jiu-Jitsu is a thing of rumours, but I keep hearing it from so many people. That's the problem I have with it. If it was just Bisping saying this, if it was just Chris Curtis saying this, if it was just Chimaev, there's a lot of people that say, and I've seen this in a lot of interviews, him and Chimaev actually go back and forth in grappling. And Bisping even says, oh, you want to talk about his stand-up? I'm telling you, his grappling is actually what he's better at. He's better at grappling and jiu-jitsu than he is on the feet. He said that on his podcast multiple times, even mentioned it when they had the interview as well. Chris Curtis said he watched Strickland and Chimaev go back and forth in the grappling, give as good as they got in the grappling and stuff like that. There's so many rumours around the different people that say this. And then even Chimaev, to fly across the world, put this into perspective. He trains with Jack Hermansson on a regular basis. He chooses to fly across the other hemisphere of the world, okay? Across the Atlantic, to get to Sean Strickland for grappling sparring. He trains with Jack Hermansson. Jack Hermansson's here with him. They can do a tournament, they're friends, they get along, they have the same training partners, they can train with Gustafsson at All-Star and stuff like that. They train with each other. Chimaev chooses, whilst having Hermansson as a guy often in his gym, to fly across the world to train with Sean Strickland specifically. Who also, Sean Strickland trains with guys like Magomed Ankalaev. I think there's a real grappling thing we aren't seeing because he just wants to be the tough guy. I don't think he's going to get KO'd by Hermansson. Hermansson's actually got decently okay hands in short bursts. He's got some hand speed here and there that can shock some people. It shocked Jacare in the first round of their fight that they had. Remember, he landed that three-piece combo on Jacare, and Jacare stumbled into a shot on him and almost got knocked down. Strickland's just so experienced. I don't think people understand how good of a record 24-3 is. Amazing record. Let's be real. Someone's got to say it. And I think he's going to piece up Hermansson on the feet. And I think Hermansson just doesn't take damage well. He gets his face shattered, his nose broken, his eyes start swelling up, he's bleeding out of his, he's got a puffy lip. It's just, he doesn't take damage well. You know what I mean? And we saw that against Uriah Hall when Strickland was stinging him with those shots that don't look powerful. the orbitals shattering. You know, the face is swelling up. I've never seen Uriah Hall with a face like that before in all of his career. I don't remember. He's been beaten. He's been TKO'd and stuff like that and beaten up. But Strickland really broke his face with shots. And I don't think Strickland's actually got good power. I think it might just be like big hands and sharp knuckles. Just digging knuckles into the eye. Blinding people right on the nose. It's just annoying to deal with. He also keeps a very square frame. And his hands are quite low sometimes as well. And he'll move his head. And I think he's going to be awkward to get down because he'll have such a strong base. It's not like he's a striker who throws a lot of kicks. That maybe Hermansson could catch one and get him down. Hermansson's going to have to hustle for these takedowns if he wants them. And I just don't see it happening because... Like, why would Chimaev fly across the world for grappling with Strickland when Hermansson's in his backyard unless Strickland gave him good grappling rounds and good work in the grappling? And why would Ankalaev train with Strickland in the grappling if he didn't give him good work in the grappling? Like, I know we haven't seen much of it, although we have seen some good jiu-jitsu work at welterweight from Strickland, and even in evidence of his fights. I mean, he never gets taken down and held down. Took down Brendan Allen, had some good moments on top of him, landing some decent shots. Got down Uriah Hall, had some good moments on top of him as well. Even again in the Usman fight, Usman dropped him, broke his orbital in the first round. And Strickland, like, didn't get beaten up that badly on the feet, or on the ground by Usman. He got controlled against the cage, but he was up on one knee, defending well, doing the correct things. Now, Usman would have moments where he'd get on top and land a couple of big shots, but I think coming up at welterweight, he's learned a lot better fundamental skills. I think he's got good grappling. I just think on the feet, despite the reach disadvantage, he's just going to stick it on Hermansson early. And I don't think you can afford to be losing against Strickland. Same thing as Tresean Gore versus Bryan battle. You can't afford to be losing because he inflicts damage with his shots. Eventually he starts landing the two behind the jab and it lands behind the ear in all weird angles. I think Adesanya is going to have... If Strickland gets towards the belt, I genuinely believe if Adesanya is the champion at the time, he will have the easiest title defense maybe of all time. And I know people like Strickland. I like Strickland, so it's hard to say that, but I think Adesanya humiliates him, schools him effortlessly on the feet, and eventually TKOs him at some point. I reckon Paulo Costa would body shot TKO him and just land with that venom. Maybe if Costa had to drain down to middleweight, he wouldn't have that same sting that he had when he fought Marvin Vettori, but I think Strickland's going to do very well here. I don't see Hermansson outstriking him. I don't see Hermansson KOing him. I just see Strickland putting it on Hermansson, putting it on him even more. Hermansson's 33. He's had his damage in fights. He didn't look great against Shabazian, although he did do good as the fight went on in the second and third round. If Shabazian lands a couple of clean ground and pound shots more at the end of the second, if you remember, Shabazian might win that one, outside of the third, of course, which went terribly badly for Edmund Shabazian. But I'm going to go with Sean Strickland here, putting it on Jack Hermansson, stuffing the takedowns, and I think the failed takedowns of Hermansson are going to make him gas out, and I reckon he gets this one done by decision. 50-45, all across the board, maybe 50-44, where he gets a 10-8 in the fifth or something like that. Like and subscribe. Thank you for watching. I just think Strickland batters in the face of Hermansson badly. Toodle pip. Click that button up there. I'll see you later.